Good morning, Julia. Nice to be back on.
Nice to speak to you. Nice to get you on. A long time no speak. Let's talk. I just want to get your thoughts in terms of the question we're asking our audience today about this talk about Donald Trump possibly pulling back from support for Zelensky in Ukraine, telling Putin not to escalate the war. But how should Britain respond? What should happen next?
We should continue to support Ukraine just as we have done right the way through. If you remember when Ben Wallace was the Defence Secretary, prior to the Russian invasion in 2022, he fought the blob, the Whitehall establishment, to get those NLAWs, those modern-day bazookas, if you like, into Ukrainian hands and to train them how to use them. If Ben hadn't done that, it is quite likely that the Russians would be having lunch in Kyiv today. So we gave the Ukrainians a great deal of support. We've trained over 30,000 Ukrainian soldiers on Salisbury Plain and elsewhere. They are fighting for our freedom too, Julia, because if we don't stop Vladimir Putin in Ukraine, we're going to have to stop him in the Baltic states. And if we don't stop him there, we're going to have to stop him in Poland. And by then, you're into something that begins to look like World War III. So it's very important that we defend the Ukrainians, because ultimately they're defending us and the same democratic values we share with them.
Indeed, it's amazing actually how many of my callers see all over social media, people just saying, like, you know, it's a waste of our money. We've got a lot of problems here. We need to be spending our hard-earned taxes here, not in Ukraine. What do you say to that?
Well, look, we just had remembrance. We just had the 2-minute silence on Armistice Day, barely half an hour ago. What does history teach us? History teaches us again and again that the appeasement of tyrants and dictators doesn't work. It's because we didn't spend enough money on defence in the 1930s. We appeased Adolf Hitler, and that emboldened him to invade Poland and led to World War II. So to cut your defence spending is actually a false economy. Now, we have a situation where Labour are talking about spending 2.5% of GDP on defence, which we would all welcome, but they keep refusing to put a date on that. Darren Jones, the Chief Secretary of the Treasury, yesterday on television, repeatedly refused to give a date. Now, if you don't put a date on it, the commitment is meaningless. So Indeed. I have a lot of respect for John Healey, the Shadow Defence Secretary, but the more often the government and the defence team in the MOD say 2.5% and don't put a date with it, the more they start to sound like the little boy who cried wolf once too often, and people are less likely to believe them, crucially, including Vladimir Putin,
but by the way,
man we're supposed to deter.
By the way, you know, you guys were in power for 14 years. Yes, OK, we'd had the economic crisis, and we had a banking crisis, and we had lockdown. Quite a few years in between there. We didn't see defence spending at anything like that scale. Perhaps if we had, I would have thought the 2014 invasion of Crimea by Vladimir Putin might have been a little bit of a giveaway, sabre rattling by the Chinese as well. Middle East problems never gone away. It seems to me that, you know, the Tories are just as bad on this, and you know as well as I do.
Julia, let me, if I may.
No. 2.5% doesn't touch the size of what we should be spending.
No, this is, if I may, this is really important. One, we started training Ukrainian soldiers after the 2014 invasion because you could tell what was going to come. And secondly, Rishi Sunak did commit to 2.5, and he did put a date on it. He said by 2030.
Yeah, but too little, too late.
Well, but Julia, once you put a date on it, you can plan, and then the MOD know how much money they've got to spend over that intervening period. The problem at the moment, and remember, we're trying to deter Putin from further adventurism, is that because we don't know what the date is, the defence budget, in effect, is completely up in the air, and Vladimir Putin's an ex-regular KGB colonel. He's not a Boy Scout. And Russians tend to admire strength and despise weakness. Yeah. And if we look weak because we won't commit to this, that is only likely to embolden him.
Well, the Russian economy is spending 40% of government spending right now on the military. I'm not quite sure 2.5% of GDP. I know government spending and GDP not the same thing, but even so, I'm not sure it touches the sides of the need.
Well, again...
Listen, no, Mark, if we'd been invaded in February 2022, we would have run out of our own bullets within 3 days. That's how scaled back our military has been. And that happened under the Conservatives as well as under Labour.
Julia, I was on the Defence Committee in the previous Parliament. We wrote that report and we were sounding a warning. And what happened was there was a great deal of lobbying behind the scenes. If you're prepared to take my word for it, we've known each other for years. And we managed to persuade Rishi Sunak to commit to 2.5, to replace a lot of the armaments and weapons that we gave to the Ukrainians, who've put them to good use. But then we said to Rishi, you've got to put a date on it, sir, otherwise the MOD can't plan. So after a lot of lobbying, people like Ben Wallace were involved in this, and James
the former Defence Secretary,
yeah, team effort. Rishi did put a date on it. He said 2030, and that allowed to replace all those munitions we'd given to the Ukrainians, to replace the weapons we'd given to the Ukrainians, and to begin what you might call a process of rearmament. So that was already underway by the time that we came to the election.
Okay, so your criticism that Labour's not continuing it. OK, I've only got a short time with you, so I just want to get to another issue, because, again, this is about safety of our borders as well, which is also a defence issue when you've got hordes of fighting-age men coming to our shores on those boats as illegal migrants. Home Office officials have apparently been, they say, underwhelmed by the approach that the new Prime Minister and Home Secretary Yvette Cooper are taking, and saying smashing the gangs won't work. We already heard from the new, the smashing the gang czar, whatever his title is, that actually there needs to be a deterrent as well. But even when it comes to people arriving in the country legally, we see from the front page of one of the papers today that hundreds of foreign criminals convicted of crimes as serious as murder, rape and child sexual abuse have been allowed into Britain from abroad, because all they have to do when they apply for a visa, I kid you not, is simply self-attest that, no, I've not been convicted of a serious crime, no checks are made, and then they could just walk into the country. We've got enough of our own wrong-uns. We don't need to import any more of any other country's wrong-uns. What do you make of both of those stories?
Well, Julia, you may remember that Labour put a retired general in charge of that whole border scenario. He then resigned within a few days of the election. Yeah. It is suggested because he was frustrated about the lack of a comprehensive Labour plan. We had a plan to address the boats issue, the Rwanda plan. Some people liked it, some people didn't, but it was one more plan than Labour have got. So Yvette Cooper keeps repeating this mantra, they're going to smash the gangs. Well, they haven't smashed them yet because they keep coming. And unfortunately, they've held summits and high-level talks. These are all gimmicks. None of that will stop the boats from coming. And unfortunately, Yvette Cooper has no plan at all, and that is now nakedly apparent, including to the people that keep coming.
Yeah, absolutely. Mark Francois, Conservative MP, Shadow Defence Minister, really appreciate you joining us. Hope to speak to you again soon. Philip Ingram, just your reaction to that final story.
Well, that final story, the new head of the Border Command that was appointed by the government turned around himself and said, I can't smash the gangs, there needs to be a deterrent. Yeah. So if he's saying it and the government isn't bringing a deterrent in, and we look at Italy, they brought a deterrent in, they're now the
processing
Prime Minister processing everyone in Albania. Anyone who comes in illegally is automatically deported to Albania to be processed.
We're not allowed to do it because of the ECHR, apparently. They're part of the ECHR, they're able to do it.
Well, exactly, and the rest of the EU are looking at that, including looking at taking over Rwanda.
I think we should deport them all to France to be processed there. That would work for me.
Maybe that's what Starmer's negotiating the sidelines of his little trip to Paris today.
No, he's busy saying, oh, please let us back in the EU. He worships that blue and yellow flag. He worships it.